Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As soon as Trump has come to power, a lot of questions are being asked about India-US relations. I've also spoken about this a little bit. We will keep talking about this because this is going to be a subject of contention. But the first conversation that we're going to have in detail is with Ambassador Kanwal Sibal. Sir, thank you so much, firstly, for joining in. This is going to be a very interesting times going ahead. Your overall impression to begin with, sir?
Well, everybody has been surprised at the scale of Trump's victory.
Yeah.
Um, everybody said it's, uh, you know, very close and you don't know what the final result would be, this and that. But finally, he won so handsomely
Hmm.
in terms of electoral votes, popular vote, also control of the Senate and House. He has now already made certain statements about what his agenda is. And the most important, from my point of view, is that he has very explicitly said he is going to target the deep state. And he's identified who are the elements in this deep state, the bureaucrats, and he wants, I forget the number, 50 of them, he wants the resignation on his table the day he joins. He wants to clean up the intelligence agencies, the FBI, and everything else. Plus, the press. Uh, he wants also to reverse, which I'm very happy about, if you ask me, this whole business of wokeism. And he's been very, very explicit on that, that human beings are born only with two genders, male and female, and that's it. And all those who have been involved, doctors and clinics, in gender change for minors, there will be criminal proceedings against them, and or they'll be denied any financial aid from the federal budget. Uh, so now, once he has declared this so openly that this is what his agenda is, there's going to be a backlash, inevitable. Now, he certainly won the election, but at the end of the day, virtually half the country is still democratic, if you like, and all these entrenched elements in the power apparatus in the United States are not going to take it lying down. Uh, so, how that backlash will come, to what extent they will try and thwart Trump's agenda, is a question that will be on everybody's mind. How much this will distract him from achieving some of his foreign policy goals, because once a leader and his team is involved in firefighting at home, to the extent that he well might be, uh, to what extent he will then be able to uh, focus as much as he wants to on certain key issues in foreign policy. That will also be a problem. And incidentally, the liberal press, so-called, uh, Washington Post, and New York Times, and what have you, they'll carry on the guerrilla warfare against Trump. Already, you've seen how they have posted fake news that Trump and Putin have had a call, and the Kremlin has denied. He says fake news. There'll be no such call. So, and the final point, that Trump is not yet in power. He'll be in power only on January 20. So between now and then, to what extent can the Democrats play mischief and make some of the areas in which he wants to depart from established policies, as they call it, Trump-proof, that he'll
Hmm.
find it very difficult to walk back from some of the uh, things they do in the field or domestically. So these are some of the question marks. Now, in terms of appointments, the fact that he's appointed Mike Waltz as the National Security Advisor, very good thing from our point of view. He's the co-chair of the India Caucus.
Yeah.
Incidentally, this is not something that uh, I would like to pat myself on the on the back. The India Caucus was set up uh, when I was in Washington, and uh,
Wow.
we in the sense that we were the We are the people under my leadership. We set it up in the first place, and we had both. It was in the House, not in the Senate. It was both the Republicans and the Democrats as co-chairs. Um, and when I left Washington, or before I left Washington, I had sent a message to the Foreign Secretary that if we can have 50 members by the time I leave, I'll consider it a big success. And we had that. Since then, of course, we expanded and this, but I can go into the details how we did this. But the point is that the Mike Walls as the co-chair of the India caucus uh, means two things. One, that he's committed to India. He understands India. He dealt with India. He dealt with Indian-related issues. He had an understanding of them. He's met the Prime Minister also, and Prime Minister went there in 2023. And he's got good connections with the diaspora. In fact, the caucus that we set up when I was in Washington was through the diaspora. We mobilized the diaspora in order to press their congressmen uh, in various states to join the caucus. That's how slowly it began to expand. So he has connections with the caucus, which means there's another line of communication
Hmm.
available uh, to us. The other thing is that uh, the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, one should not, now that the Democrats are out of power, doesn't mean that we should not recognize many of the positive things that happened during Biden's tenure. And in this, Jake Sullivan uh, played a very important role. He was co chairing the initiative for uh, critical and emerging technologies, which, if it gets implemented in the way both sides want and expect, it means a huge uh, growth in technological cooperation in diverse areas, critical areas between India and the United States. Now, when you have, I was not sure as to whether uh, the next NSA would own this ICET and agree to co-chair it and drive it, because it's unusual for the National Security Advisor to do this with an individual country. But one can assume that Mike Walls would be willing to do so. So that's a good thing. He's also a China hawk,
Hmm.
uh, which means that Quad and Indo-Pacific and all that will continue to get attention and will continue to be strengthened, uh, which is also a good thing, which will increase our bargaining power with the Chinese. Now that there are some openings that have been created between the two countries, so the Chinese have to take note of it. And I already see from a press this morning that there are softer noises coming from China. So, on the other hand, he's been tough on Russia.
Yep.
But then, given Trump's own thinking about Russia and how to, uh, end this conflict in Ukraine, I suppose Mike Walsh will have to adjust his thinking and bring it in line with the larger framework in which Trump wants to deal with Russia. But then, and I'll end there, that when he was co-chair of the caucus, he was very au fait, very familiar with Indian policy toward Russia. And all this while we have been strengthening our ties, preserving our ties with Russia, buying oil from them, BRICS membership, SCO, and everything else. So he knows this. So it's not as if
It's a
now
surprise.
our Russia relationship, sorry for the cough, will come to
No
him
problem, sir.
as a new dimension. So he must have already internalized that and understood that. So I think we should be able to manage that part of our equation with the new government in the United States.
So one big concern or one big factor that I think everybody will kind of assess the new Trump administration is on this whole, I don't know whether to call it the leftist agenda or the leftist anti-India agenda, which is of these so-called Khotestanis, Khalistanis. these little pressure tactics that they keep playing with us. Uh, do you think Trump is interested in all these things, or is he going to take in more of a sense of realism rather than this whole agenda that the game has been played on till now?
I think uh, there should be a change in thinking and approach
Hmm.
on the US side, because the previous administration was totally insensitive to our concerns. I mean, constantly goading us, uh, 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 you know, treating us as a country answerable to them. We need accountability. Uh, we need satisfaction. And it's being said at various levels, right from Blinken's level and even Sullivan's level to uh, the uh, person, diplomat in charge of the South Asia region. So, but there is one caveat here. Even if the new administration wants to deal with it more soberly, the fact is that there's a case going on, and that case will be played out. Evidence will be presented. The press will pick it up. Our press, as usual, play it up as much as they can, because there is a the Modi and now the Amit Shah angle to this also. Uh, so it's not as if even if the administration tried to uh, tone down all the uh, atmospherics around it, I think we should keep in mind that there's potential for the press and for the Indian lobbies there to continue to raise this issue. But what I would expect is that the new administration, uh, including the new NSA, would want to deal with it more discreetly behind the scenes, rather than use it as an open lever to pressure India, as they have been doing.
You know, you mentioned that he wants to go against the deep state, which is very interesting. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are having reservations that, okay, fine, you want to go against the deep state. Why are you announcing it? Just do it. Because you're announcing it, that means you're giving out your plans. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. That seems a little, to a lot of people, that this might just be dangerous. That you're trying to, advertise the factor that you're doing this, because the deep state is not going to sit quiet, as you very, very clearly said as well. What do you think is going to be the reaction? And one of the reactions that I am seeing right now is, the Democrats actually coming across and saying, oh, Joe Biden must step down, and he must let Kamala Harris become the interim president so that she becomes the 45th, and then we will see what happens after that. So this is one of the narratives which is coming across. How do you see all this games which might just get played?
Well, firstly, if you recall that during his first term also, he was warned that you should not take on the intelligence agencies and all that, and that they will hit back. Uh, and in their own way, they did.
Yep.
Uh, so I think what he has in mind are a couple of things. If I can make a guess, I really don't know. One is that he said very clearly during his speech when he announced his victory that promises made, promises kept. And they tried very hard to prevent him from being a candidate, even jail him if they could, involve him in complicated legal processes, humiliate him by making him appear in court, uh, and assassination attempts also, at least the first one, in the dubious circumstances.
Yeah,
So,
to
so
say the
he
least.
he made it very clear that this was his promise and he's going to keep his promise. The second is warning them in advance. I mean, it can be taken the other way also. That
Hmm.
I am letting. It's a sense of defiance. I am letting you know. I am going to chase you. I'm going to get rid of you, or I'm going to contain you, and be aware. In other words, they they should be aware that if they continue to do what they were doing, or they hatch new conspiracies, uh, they would become even more answerable. So there can be that strategy also, uh, that I am letting you know frontly that I'm going to deal with you, and therefore beware. Don't hatch new conspiracies, or try to do something to undermine me between now and the time I join. But you're right. I mean, uh, there is this entire bureaucracy and the whole system which he can't change. Somebody said the other day that ultimately the president appoints about 5,000 people. Uh, but if you want to deal with the deep state and do the kind of things he has in mind, you would have to deal with about 500,000 people.
Correct.
So, in the sense that, I mean, it's only not Washington. I mean, it's a much wider geographical uh,
Yeah.
spread that he has to take. Now, for example, the California governor and the California attorney general has already said that we're going to fight back. We're not going to allow you to implement anything that you say in our state. That's one part. The other is all said and done. Uh, Whatever the flaws in U.S. democracy, it is a democracy. And Trump, even if he has won, he's not a dictator. And there are so many elements within the system uh, which will resist, and they have the capacity to resist the big tech, the big corporations, and what have you. Uh, then the so-called checks and balances in the Congress also, he has to make sure that his agenda is supported. He gets the money to to pursue his agenda. Uh, there is the legal system. There is a judiciary. Now he wants to appoint a couple of new justices on the conservative side, so that the complexion of the bench becomes solidly conservative. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier about the change in presidency and this and that. In fact, one suggestion was that Kamala Harris should be put
Supreme Court.
on the Supreme Court and that kind of a thing. Um, but asking Biden to resign and make Kamala Harris president and all, I think would be seen very, very poorly
Yeah.
by the public, because first of all, uh, she showed that she doesn't have it in her to be the president of the United States. She never won a single primary. She never tested her public popularity. And despite billions coming into our coffer and such a massive uh, support that came in order to prevent Trump from winning, so the
Hmm.
backed field didn't succeed. And now to make her president in interim, it look a huge slap in the face of the American public. So I don't think that, my view, I don't think that this will happen. But these ideas are being floated to, let's say, um, try and gum up the works if they can.
The funny thing is that they are looking at something drastic. And the other day there was CNN was discussing, and I was quite shocked that sitting generals would actually do this. That they were discussing, oh, how do we kind of disobey his orders if he crosses a line? Now this is, I mean, it's unbelievable that these guys would actually sit down and talk about stuff like this and put it out in the public domain on top of it.
Well, as you know, he said that I want every general, every military officer who was involved in the debacle in Afghanistan, I want his head. I want them to resign. He made it very clear. So, I mean, it's a very bold thing where he's asking a cleaning up of the Pentagon and all those associated uh, with the kind of humiliating withdrawal of U.S. forces from Afghanistan. So he said that, so one can understand that there would be some kind of pushback. But making it public and this and that, I don't know what are the what are the gains behind. I mean, they made public that Trump and Putin have talked, and Kremlin has said that this is pure, it's fake news. It's not happened. So God knows what they are saying about the generals coming together and hatching a conspiracy, whether this is just true or whether they are manipulating the news uh, in order to, uh, thwart uh, Trump's intentions.
That's the whole thing. It's so that means this is game season, right? So interesting thing is that when a lot of people say that oh, up to Trump aa gaya, everything will be fine and things are going to be this thing, and there's huge amount of optimism which is there in India. I want to look at it a little more practically. So Trump has this habit of tariff wars and this and that, and honestly, I like that. That's more realistic. I'd like to fight with someone on real issues rather than these leftist based agenda. So I'm pretty happy about fighting with someone as a country on tariffs, on trade, and this and that, because these are real issues. I mean, this is something which one can, take a pragmatic stand and kind of, you can look at different options. You can benefit out of it as well. So there's a lot which goes in that aspect. Having said that, Trump will go after China, sir. That we know with higher tariffs. What is the opportunity for India in this?
Well, he said that he'd impose 60% tariffs on all Chinese exports to the United States and 10% on all others, including India. Now, some believe that we can handle 10% tariffs, that it won't be that much of a problem. And it might actually open up some opportunities for us in certain areas. If, let's say, Apple products from China attract 60% tariff and from India 10%, then the whole field gets open for us. Uh, and there's some people are saying that our exports of iPhones will go up to 30 billion or something like that. So there is that aspect. But I think there are problematic issues behind this. Uh, First of all, uh, Robert, this Lighthizer, whom we appointed as uh, to now define U.S. state policy, is a real hawk. And left to himself, he will abolish the WTO. He wants to go back to the old era when the United States could unilaterally deal with trade matters, impose tariffs. The Section 301 and this and that and that. Now they find that WTO has curbed U.S. independence to look after its trade interests uh, by uh, inserting it into a multilateral framework where the decisions they take can be challenged. And you go to WTO, there's a dispute settlement mechanism, and most of these decisions have gone against the United States.
Hmm.
So they don't like it. They want to be the power who can do what they like, which they do in so many other areas, sanctions and everything else, legal or illegal, they don't bother. So that mindset it's okay. We made profit from it here and there, but that mindset is very dangerous in terms of the functioning of the global trading system. That's one aspect. The other is we shouldn't forget that uh, he withdrew the GSP preferences from us. He imposed tariffs on our steel and aluminum products. Uh, he is very keen to uh, sell us more agricultural products from the United States. He was obsessed and still seems to be obsessed with Harley Davidsons. Uh, so, um, so that way he will bring on the table a trade agenda, uh, which will become a source of uh, difficulties and tensions with us. At the end of the day, and there are one or two other things I'll say also. At the end of the day, I mean, look at United States with its per capita income, the size of its economy. Look at India with the size of its economy and its per capita income. We may say we are the fifth largest, but at 4 trillion compared to 25 or God knows what the size, 25 trillion or something, the size of the U.S. economy. Where is the comparison? How can these two countries be treated at an equal level? that
Hmm.
whatever tariffs we impose on other countries, those countries must impose the same tariffs. There should be equality. Since the United States is an open economy, and they structured the whole global system actually in order to get cheap goods, manufactured goods from all over the world, including China, hmm, at the lowest possible cost. And therefore, they talk about open markets and everything else because they wanted to suck in all this in order to maintain prosperity at home and keep inflation levels low. Now, when they found that the U.S. industry uh, felt that the costs in the United States were high, so let's go to other corners of the world as part of a global part of globalization, which the Americans pushed. Let's set up industry elsewhere, especially in China, and from there we can produce at low cost and export to the United States, and therefore U.S. has deficits. So they can't have it both ways. They can't have it both ways. Uh, So I think down the line, uh, there will be serious disruptions if United States and continues to pursue, not continues, if Trump pursues the policy of using the trade lever. Uh, Earlier on, they've been using the dollar lever, but now the
Hmm.
trade lever to put pressure on other countries. Incidentally, on this de-dollarization, he has he has made very threatening noises that any country that goes down that road, I don't know, did he say I'll declare war on them or is it
No,
shut
he
them
just
up?
said we will deal with it as a national security angle.
Something like that. This is American power, and he wants to
Yeah.
wield it to get the maximum benefit from it. However, with a, won't end on a pessimistic note. We've gone through this already in the
Yeah.
4 years of Trump. And there were issues on the trade side, the medical instruments and agriculture and this and IT, some tariffs that we put on IT products, et cetera, on which there were difficulties. Lighthizer was in charge. Uh, we were able to manage it. And then when the Democrats came, actually we solved those issues. So it's not as if uh, United States or Trump will have a single-minded focus only on the trade side and would be willing to sacrifice other aspects of the ties with India or create strong ripples in those, uh, uh, you know, in order to get their way on the trade. It doesn't make sense. They have to take a holistic view. How important is India? How important is India in the geopolitical context? How important is India in terms of the prospects it holds as a market, as a growing economy, as the fastest growing large economy, and the kind of projections that IMF is giving about where we will reach in terms of the size of our economy? How important is India in terms of using Indian manpower to actually support technological advances in the United States? There's no other country in the world that has such scale of trained manpower in the technological area, which then can support US. Now, all these global capability centers, there are 1,700 of them. Next year, I'm told they may go up to 2,700.
Yeah.
They're employing thousands of Indian technicians and PhDs to do research for them. Where will they get this kind of thing? So people who will ultimately take decisions, even if they are upset with certain aspects of Indian policy on trade and what they see is closed market, relatively closed market or high tariffs, have to take into account other aspects. And a balance has to be struck. Therefore, negotiating, uh, uh, we have a negotiating hand.
Hmm.
Therefore, we can negotiate and find. And then at the end of it, it is helpful that the two principles relate to each other very well. Uh, Although Trump in his campaign, during his campaign, has been talking about India as the tariff king and an abuser of trade and everything else. At the same time, he's spoken very, very warmly, more than once, repeatedly,
Yeah.
uh, about his equation with the Modi and his admiration for Modi and this and that. I don't think this is just play acting. I think there is a degree of genuineness in this. So we have, therefore, uh, a channel of communication, uh, which is important, uh, which is useful. So that can play a role. And now, as I said, with people like Mike Walls and all, as an essay, we have another channel of communication. So important. And similarly, we'll find maybe when he makes his other appointments that we'll have other people in the administration who can either plead our case or who can internally say that India is far too important a prize for us to lose
Don't do
uh,
this. Hmm.
over these kind of pressures on trade. So there it is.
There's also another thing which is now the neighborhood, which is under context, and Trump's tweet about Bangladeshi Hindus was very interesting. To me, it kind of shook up the guys in Bangladesh quite badly. And
It
Yunus
has.
went gaib for almost 6 7 days. So-called Yunus was out. He was nowhere in the media. He just kept quiet. He didn't say anything. Right now he's in COP 28. I think he's the final. जाके मिल लेता हूँ यार, मेरे जो दोस्त यार हैं भाई, क्या करूँ ये तो लात मार रहा है मेरे को. So what's happening here, as a matter of fact, one with Bangladesh, two with Pakistan, and of course this whole interference with regards this whole Christian state and this and that they come up with, which is there. How do you think these two three things will span out, sir?
Yeah. Firstly, he's not forgotten that Yunus and his Grameen, whatever it is, they funded Hillary Clinton.
Yep.
And he said that. He remembers that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So he's not at all fond of of Yunus.
He
And
actually
Yunus,
said, "What? This guy put money to make me lose."
yeah,
So,
exactly. So he's linked in his mind to Clinton and Obama and what have you. And therefore there is no chemistry there, or whatever it is very corrosive hydrochloric chemistry that is operating there. Uh, Number one. Uh, Number two, the fact that it might also be to win the Hindu vote in the United
yeah,
States.
vote bank, of course. Why not?
And that, but I think it also went beyond that. It was courageous of him, bold of him. For the first time, any U.S. leader has openly spoken about persecution of Hindus in
Hmm.
Bangladesh. Uh, or for that matter, just raising the issue of persecution of Hindus. Important. And he can't step back on this. And it will be a very powerful signal to Bangladesh that they have to be careful how much they internalize this and try and control the Islamists on the ground remains to be seen. But the earlier kind of impunity, sense of impunity they had, and Yunus had, that America is behind him, I think they'll have to recalculate that a bit. Let's see what happens. Secondly, in terms of this Christian, this state, and this and that, a couple of things. Uh, One is that there are a lot of evangelicals who support Trump.
Trump.
So that evangelist lobby uh, will work in ways that may not be very congenial to us. Uh, Now, whether they will actually go as far as to uh, promote what seems to have been in mind of, at least according to Sheikh Hasina, of the previous U.S. administration, or to carve out a Christian state. Uh, and there are echoes of that when I think the Mizoram chief minister went to United States recently, where he talked about the ethnic communities, Chin and all, that we should become united and we should be one. This we've been separated in three countries, but we should all join together. But under the Indian flag or under India, that's what he said in order to cover him what he was saying. But the whole idea that is being germinated is something that we need to pay serious attention to it, and how much this can be picked up by problematic lobbies uh, in our region and in the United States as well. So we'll have to keep uh, a watch on that. And the third was what? There were three things.
Pakistan, sir.
Pakistan. Now there is a there is a there's a view that Trump has a soft corner for Imran Khan, and there are those who are saying why is he silent on Imran Khan and his incarceration, this and that. On the other hand, the new national security advisor is very clear on Pakistan and on its support for terrorism and for harboring this Lashkar-e-Taiba and this and that. You should see his statements. He's very clear. Uh, he's unsparing when it comes to Pakistan. And he said very clearly that Pakistan must give up using terrorism as a tool for foreign policy, which is echoing what we have been saying. Uh, I don't think, it's my guess, that Trump would be uh, too bothered about Pakistan at this juncture for the simple reason that when he had reached out, he was still in Afghanistan. They still needed Pakistani cooperation to exit Afghanistan safely. Now, that era is over. So, why would he want Pakistan for what? I can't see any particular logic for him to be soft on Pakistan. Uh, and if basically uh, he his general view is that I don't want to get involved in the military interventions or projecting our military power here and there. So, what would he need Pakistan for? To come back into Afghanistan or deal with the Taliban and this and that? In fact, he's the one during his tenure they set up the Dua office.
Yep.
So, so no, I don't think that uh, we need to be concerned about U.S. overtures to Pakistan under his presidency, which could be problematic for us.
Hmm. Again, going back to the neighborhood in America itself, there are two countries that there's a lot of antagonism with right now. One of them is Mexico, where the leftist president refuses to acknowledge the fact that Trump has won the election. Till now, she's not congratulated him. And a lot of people must take this example who crib about India's foreign policy in the neighborhood that, oh, we can't do anything. We can't even fix a small neighbor. Look at that. There is a small little country there who refuses to acknowledge Trump. And then you've got a larger country called Canada, where there is obviously that antagonistic behavior with Justin the Trudeau. And how do you think? I'm more interested in Canada because Mexico is not really that much of an interest at the moment for us. We are all having some deals with them and stuff, but Canada is a interesting case. Why? Because one, the kind of abuse the Canadians have given, the Canadian government has given Trump, and now that he's back, you can see them fluttering around the place. And of course, the antagonistic relationship with India. So if Trump wants to move forward, India is going to. I mean, if I was anybody, I would say, okay, fix that first. You know.
Well, he has a very poor opinion of Trudeau,
Yeah.
calling him dishonest, weak, double-faced, two-faced. Uh, he has he has made his views on Trudeau known rather openly and in strong terms. That should have Trudeau worried, and I think
Yeah.
he is. That's one part. The other is that very afraid of the 10% tariff that he has threatened to impose, because this will make this will put enormous pressure on Canada, which is already facing serious economic issues. Uh, on top of that, if this happens, they are fearful that this will hurt their trade with the United States, making many things uncompetitive. Which is why Christia Freeland uh, gave an interview the other day where she wants to rush to Washington and talk to the Trump people in order to forestall any such move which might hurt their interests. Now, From our point of view, they're not a bad thing. And on top of it, if on this Niger nonsense, Canada begins to feel that the earlier kind of all-out support that they were getting from the Democrats, from the US, if that is no longer available under the new administration, they may want to step back a little bit because the kind of encouragement that they were getting
Yeah.
from United States may not be available, and it's totally juvenile approach to India that he is willing to take on India over a person like Niger, and without evidence and admitting there was no evidence. So that kind of buccaneering that he engaged in uh, should have should now uh, should now change, given the change in the United States with the Trump election. Uh, let's see how it goes. I think Trudeau would have internalized that he cannot take on India the way he has been, as if uh, India is answerable to him. And if India is not answerable to him, then he supposedly thought that he has some tools in his hands to force India to do so. If the only tool he had was leaking conversations with Duval to the Washington Post, and I don't think that's enough of a tool for Canada to deal with India. So this whole uh, attitude of treating India with disrespect and maligning India on the global stage, that I think he will have to revisit with Trump in power.
And lastly, sir, you have also the whole structure of America, which is built up on certain ideals and stuff like that, and you see the internal conflict, if I may, taking place right now on the street itself. You got protests happening there, you got this and that and the other, whole lot of things. So America is going to be not very stable if the Democrats and the leftists have their way. They would try and create some chaos for him as well. What should India kind of learn from all this stuff, sir? And if you were to advise the Indian government, what would you tell them? How pragmatic, opportunistic, or cautious one must be while dealing with this new setup?
Well, firstly, we have no control over this. This is
Hmm.
a domestic issue. Uh, so for us then to try and shape our thinking and policy on the basis of how this played out internally uh, would not be a pragmatic approach in the sense that we'll have to deal it by the ear. We don't know uh, what will be the scale of internal resistance and disorder or what have you in the United States. Uh, now, in the if let's say the Trump administration is constantly uh, uh, in trouble with managing its domestic politics, uh, and then we feel that it might also shift the focus away from relationship with India, uh, or for that matter, shift the focus away from foreign policy in general, or strengthen the isolationist trends in the United States which are there. Then we have to assess that situation. Well, the long and short is that uh, we sh- we should continue to deal with the United States on the assumption that we have a more friendly uh, government power. We achieved a lot with the previous government, which in many ways was friendly, but in some ways was not so. Uh, but this government would largely be more friendly. though mind you, on trade and other things, they may be more difficult. So we should deal with it positively with a sense of optimism that uh, we can move the relationship forward and build on the foundation that already has been built over five presidents. With each president, we have made some advances. At the end of the day, Trump for us is a known entity, not an unknown entity. Shankar has said that a lot of countries are nervous about the change, but India is not one of the countries that is nervous about the change. I think to a large extent he is right. Uh,
Mm.
we need not be nervous, but we should temper our. There is a lot of enthusiasm in some circles, I'm told, about Trump's victory. But I think that would be exaggerating uh, the importance of that change for us. I mean, we need not be enthusiastic. We should welcome the change, which in any case has happened not because of us, it's because of the internal dynamics in that country. And our past experience with Trump has been that we can manage that relationship.
Yeah,
And now, with his new team and his positive attitude in many ways towards India, we should be able to build on the foundation that exists. I mean, we should remain hopeful and positive.
indeed. Thank you so much, sir. Some lovely insights, and one looks forward to kind of the happy change in America because no one hates the country, but people I think don't like the setup and the whole atmosphere of America, and that's pretty sad for a country that actually a lot of people look up to.
There's one thing which I would welcome in particular
So,
is this wokeism. This
oh yeah,
wokeism is also coming into India,
freaking disease.
and I don't want to say it, but even in a justice system, this seems to have come in.
Yeah, yeah. So,
But, but we are so much exposed to the US social media and the platforms that the academia in the United States, the woke platforms that the US academia, the leftists have promoted, which has an echo here, and NGOs and activists of all kinds pick up on this and on so many of these issues of society. They want to bring about the same kind of change that they see happening in the United States. Now, with his clear cut anti woke agenda, uh, and his targeting of the leftists and the social media. I hope that that kind of influence that is penetrating into our society from the United States, that would subside, and that'll be a big thing. That the woke ideas, when they're no longer popular, acceptable, and trendy in the United States, would
mm.
also no longer be acceptable and trendy in India. One hopes that.
Yeah, absolutely. India and around the world. So, I mean, I wish the best for my country, but I don't hope for the worst for the rest of the globe also because we are staying in that same region, and
Yeah.
it's it's a disease, and that's what I say. In any case, sir, thank you so much. I'll see you the next time for your wonderful opinion. It's always a pleasure talking to you,
My
and
pleasure.
hope to see you back again very soon. Till then, Jai Hind.
Thank you, Jahid. Bye bye.
Bye bye, sir.